Hey, Nerd Herders, Dynasty Nerds, we're back in studio with a brand new show, and this show is going to have a lot of data, and we're talking quarterbacks.
Find out where your favorite quarterback lands on the list.
Oh, man, some of these GOATs. There's going to be some names that take you back.
We're going back to 1998. Let's dig in.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garret Price.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going pretty swell. We're all back together here in the studio. It's been a couple weeks, even though next week we will be remote.
Hey, man, it's summer. Dynasty summer.
Yeah,
What you gonna
hot
do,
boy
man?
summer. I ain't complaining.
Dynasty hot boy summer. We got stuff to do, man.
You tanned the can, right, last
Ooh,
week?
man.
Yeah, tan can.
I know you can't see it because it's about 2 degrees down here
It is cold.
where we're recording. So
I brought the hoodie.
Yeah, I'm all zipped up, but I am tan.
I am completely comfortable. I mean, you might be able to see my nipples, but I am completely comfortable.
You acclimated to this. You were here before us.
Born in the darkness.
You walked down at me, you're like, brr. I forgot to close all the vents.
I mean, it's like 85 here. I drove with the windows down on the way here.
Dude,
It's like
I see pumps.
it is 12 degrees in here.
It's cold.
Yeah, we like to keep it nice and frosty. That way, if I ever die, like if I ever have like any health issues, like I'm almost gonna die, like I'm caught like halfway frozen.
There you go.
That's my goal.
Preserve yourself.
Yeah, I tried to tell my wife I want to be preserved in one of those cryo things. Yeah.
Cryogenics.
Yeah, she's told me no. I've asked for like 15 years. But then I just read that report, like all the original people that got cryo froze or whatever, they all melted.
Whoops.
I don't think they did it right.
Somebody accidentally unplugged
They had
it.
to scrape them out the bottoms. Like, oh, this might not be good. But dude, we got planned. Elon's going to figure out how to take my brain and put it in something else.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I need. That's all I need.
That's all you need is your brain.
Yeah, put it whatever.
The rich bot.
Yeah. The rich spot. Hi, I'm your host. That's just a stupid robot. Hey, I'm inside here, man. Why is his nipple so hard? When he got frozen.
Metallic nipples.
They've been like that ever since he was frozen. There's nothing he could do about it.
So we're back. This episode, we are talking quarterback ones. And what are the odds of you being a quarterback one consistently? And how
Now,
many
not
times you're
just
gonna
a
do it?
quarterback one.
No, not just a quarterback one. We're talking, when it comes to quarterback ones, we're talking elite quarterback ones, which when you look at, so we're talking top 6 quarterbacks. Like,
Top
what are the
6.
odds of you finish as top 6 quarterback? And the difference is because when you're a top 6 quarterback, I mean, when you look at somebody last year like Josh Allen, he scored 410 points, like as number 1. Number 2, Jalen Hurts, 371. But then you go down to 9, Tua Tagovailoa scored 284. You know, it's like a 100-point difference, almost like the tight end. It starts to get tight endish. So what we've seen is the top 6 guys are like almost in a tier. Obviously, the top 3 guys are in a tier by themselves.
Sure.
But then
And we have those numbers as well.
Yeah, and the top 6 guys are in a different tier. And then you can go anywhere from, for example, Derek Carr scored 249 points last year as quarterback 16. And then you go to quarterback 11, CJ Stroud, was 280. That's a 30-point difference over 17 weeks.
Right.
Like, that's not, you're talking about 2 points per game, which, again, every point counts.
It does.
But you start to get a little bit more in that, like, hey, tight end 7, tight end 14. Hey, we're twins. Well, you're just Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'm Danny DeVito.
No, it absolutely does. And that's, we pick the top 12 running backs and we'll do the top 12 wide receivers. And we do those for a reason because it's a difference-making tier. And you could argue maybe you should just do top 8 or top 10 or whatever. But that's truly a difference-making tier. The top 12 at quarterback, like we use that as a cutoff point often, but
Because most leagues are 12-team leagues. That's the
12-team
only
leagues.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason that we use that as a cutoff.
Right. But realistically, there are guys that just does it really matter?
Right.
Does it really matter that they were quarterback 9 because quarterback 14 was basically the same guy? You know, like it just, so we wanted to see like how, if you are an elite quarterback, how often can you repeat that? And there were some really interesting names. I went in the Wayback Machine on this to make sure we had enough data for it to really be interesting. So there's some fun names to talk about in here.
You went back to the 90s.
I did.
90s.
I went back to 1998, the year Peyton Manning was drafted, because I wanted to get we just lost that kind of golden era of quarterbacks, and I wanted to get all those guys in the data set.
Rich, do you remember 1998?
Yeah, I graduated high school that year.
We graduated high school that year, and it was glorious.
It was glorious. I got punched in the stomach by our principal.
Yes, you did.
I remember you telling me that story.
Yep.
Yeah, he didn't like me very much.
He did not. He did not. I showed him.
But you remember the Dynasty Hot Boy summer of 98?
That was a great summer.
That was a great summer.
And to be fair, every summer that followed for probably the next decade was pretty damn sweet.
You're right.
But those following years were really, really, that summer was great.
Yeah, it was.
But then at the same time, every year we had Ohio State was pretty hot boy summer.
True. I mean, we've just kind of carried it on into our elder years.
Yeah, until our wives took all the fun out of our lives. You heard me, wife.
That's why we
You're about to
started
get a text message.
That's why we started a podcast.
Yeah. Take that. Almost 11 years ago. So yeah, like going back to 98 and like it is intriguing. So like what is it like how like again the value, right? This is all about value. So when we talked about running backs last week, that was kind of an eye opener. Like I know you weren't here last week, we went over some running backs that really kind of showed us, Matt, that like Rashad White, even I think the biggest shocker was like, oh, we should probably sell Kyron Williams, like as a must sell almost guy. What it shows here is like if you can get one of those guys that start to show they're consistently a top 6 quarterback, like they're gold mine. They're immediately worth like 3 firsts and like a good running back. like here's 3 firsts in Kyron Williams for Josh Allen. Here's 3 firsts in Kyron Williams for Pat. I mean, it's gonna be hard to still get it.
Super flex you're talking about.
Correct.
Any sort of super flex league.
Only super flex. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I just wanted to say that out
screw
loud.
the quarterbacks in one QB league.
Yeah.
They're a dime a dozen. Go trade for the old guy. But some of these names are like real shocking. So Garret, if you want to take the lead on this, I know there's some names that are going to kind of shock you. Like you're like, oh, Lamar Jackson, right? Like, yeah, get up there in those numbers.
No,
not so fast, Pat Sajak.
And it's I think because we have been so ingrained with he was a QB1, he was a QB1, he was a QB1, he was a QB1 that there are going to be some names that have far fewer top 6 seasons than you realize. And then there's going to be a couple like, holy cow, that dude was even more elite than I realized. Like totally incredible. So
like, yeah, go ahead and go next. You guys are pretty shocked. And it kind of goes back to the one number 2 where we saw like Alvin Kamara and LaShawn McCoy like were such a high tier by themselves, and like Christian McCaffrey was and creeping.
Yep.
We're the same thing here. Like there's 3 guys like in a top tier, like in a tier all by themselves number wise, and then there's like actually top 2 guys, then 2 guys, and then it's kind of like a whole schmog.
Maj Posh. Before we move too far away from the running backs and into these quarterbacks, was there any surprises? Because we did this show a couple years ago, but we kind of updated the information. Rich,
Sure. Joe Mixon.
Okay. Joe Mixon was a surprise guy.
3 years ago when we said started saying Joe Mixon was a buy, he has 3 best years. 5 running back 1 finishes.
is it 5? I think it was 4.
Was it 4?
I think it was 4 because McCaffrey's at 5 and him and Zeke were in their own tier.
You keep talking. Hold
All
on.
right. He's going to look.
You're talking.
I looked at these numbers a long time. I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong.
Joe Mixon 4.
Okay.
Joe Mixon 4. But Matt, only 2 running backs did it 5 times. Zeke and CMC.
Yeah.
And then only 2 did it 6 times. And that was Alvin Kamara and LaShawn McCoy. Joe Mixon, it was Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and Aaron Jones, the ones that did it 4. So like Joe Mixon was kind of a surprise. Like, wow,
he's better than I thought. Right.
Yeah, way better than anybody thought. Like he was probably one of the best buys you can get. Like out of all those guys, everybody else is kind of Le'Veon Bell only doing it 3 times with some kind of. I thought like he might have done it more.
But what made it seem like it was more is he was a top 3 running back each and every one of those seasons.
Each one of those years.
So
he was
those
elite.
years really stood out. And I think arguably the other biggest takeaway was if you looked at the names and the not 3 or more. So there were a couple surprising ones that did 2, but like all of those players for the most part were guys, or the single year ones, almost all of those guys were ones that were like 2nd round rookie picks, 3rd round rookie picks, flyers that just kind of came out of nowhere. Like very few of them were players like, I drafted this guy top 6. Like Trent Richardson was in there, obviously. That was a disappointment. Like there were a few disappointments, but most of those guys that were 1-year wonders were guys that you took in the 2nd round, 3rd round. And even a lot of the guys that did it 2 times were just kind of
Arian Foster's flash in the pan type of
Yes,
guys.
Jordan
Yep.
Howard.
Yep.
and-
Yep.
Yeah, so it showed us too, like if you weren't like a first round rookie pick, like a high first round rookie pick, and you're a running back 1, the odds of you doing it again, like those odds
low.
go drastically lower. Because even though the percentage was higher, like we were talking about, that percentage is somewhat like skewed because it's the same guys kind of holding that number up. So it's like, oh, the same. Like I heard some funny stat the other day about like divorce rates. Like, oh, divorce rates are this number. Like, well, it's kind of a skewed number because the reality is, like, if you're together after 5 years, like, you're going to last way longer. But, like, usually if you get one divorce, those people get multiple divorces, and they skew the numbers.
Sure.
So same thing, like, even though the percentage was, like, high at, like, 55% to do it again, a lot of those guys are the same guys. Like, there's, like, 4 or 5 guys doing it consistently that are kind of skewing that number a little bit. So, like,
pulling everyone else up, kind of.
yeah, so there's only a handful of guys. I think it was like 16 or 15 out of the 20 that were doing it multiple times were all first round picks. So it was like really like skewed, like you said, Jordan Howard, Arian Foster, Aaron Jones,
Sure.
Potentially, somebody who we talked up a bit on there.
Yeah, he
I'll never
ended
let
up.
anybody forget that, by the way.
Yeah, he ended up being awesome. He landed in the 4 category, which was pretty impressive. But let's get into the quarterbacks.
Listen back to the show, bro. Listen
Yeah.
back to the show.
I mean, it is interesting. I don't typically listen back, but I might listen back.
You
to
should.
That.
It's a really good. We got a lot of. Thanks to everybody who reached out. Like we got a lot of positive.
Do you have the
reviews.
spreadsheet? If not, I'll make sure you get the spreadsheet if you want to see it.
I don't know that I have it.
Okay, I'll send you that one too.
Send it.
We'll email it to you. It's on here. It's some really good data.
Cool.
But
Now we're doing quarterbacks.
But we did the exact same thing with quarterbacks. So like we said, we went back all the way to 1998. And we will put a lot of this in the YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see, because I know sometimes just hearing the data can be confusing as to what's going on. Seeing it
Hard
is
to
a lot
follow. Yep.
easier to digest.
Did we do that with the running backs? Did we put it out on Twitter?
We
Excel
put
sheet?
we put the Excel sheet in the notes. I'll make sure this goes in the notes as well. So if you just want to look at the sheet while you're listening or something too, but also in the YouTube, we'll make sure that we put up screenshots as we talk of different things and whatnot.
It's fun to look at.
It is very fun to
Some
look
of these
at.
names are a blast from the past. And you're like, wow, he was pretty good.
They really are. So what we're seeing overall is
Can we? I had to look one guy up. I couldn't remember who he was. I was like,
the
wait,
name.
Yeah, who is? I'm like, who the hell is Aaron Brooks? I was like,
Oh, Aaron Brooks,
you don't
quarterback of the
remember Aaron Brooks
Saints.
for the Saints?
Yeah, it's one of those names that did not click. And as soon as I
Wow.
saw his picture, I was like, oh yeah, that's
Oh,
who Aaron
that's
Brooks
him.
is.
Wow.
Yep.
I
All
know
right.
Aaron Brooks.
So there's a little bit of a difference, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work out doing only top 6 versus top 12, but still, even with that, there is a much higher percentage of guys that if they are a top 6 quarterback one time, there's a good chance they're going to do it again. Almost 70% chance that they're going to do it 2 or more times. So of this entire group that we had,
So say that number again. So if you are a top 6 quarterback,
if you are a top 6 quarterback one time, there is a 68.89% chance, so almost 70%.
those are good odds.
Those are
I
good
would
odds.
bet Matt's life on that.
Yep. Hey, there's a 70% chance you're going to live, my man.
Oh my gosh, Rich.
Okay, maybe not yours. I do love you too
I
much.
thought we
I
were
would bet
boys.
Garrett's life on
Okay,
that.
that's fair.
Yeah, I need better odds. For
Telling
that.
me there's a chance.
Yeah.
So there's a very good chance that if somebody was a top 6 quarterback at least one time, the odds of them repeating it are pretty good, because there are not as many flukes to get to that level. You could sneak into quarterback 1 range, and with a bunch of guys got hurt that year,
Sure.
and you had 2 games where one of them was 4 touchdowns and the other one was 5 touchdowns, and you beat up on a couple crappy defenses, and all of a sudden you catapulted your way into quarterback 1 conversation. But realistically, you were only 3 points ahead of the 13th ranked quarterback guy and 5 points ahead of the 14th, and you just snuck in. To get top 6, you have to be putting up numbers, because I don't care who's hurt. Like, to be one of the top 6 fantasy quarterbacks, and it's even more difficult in today's day and age, because we have a lot more runners than we had in the past, where we had a lot more pocket quarterbacks before. Running the ball has become so much more imperative than it ever was in the NFL before. So since 1998, so the cutoffs are you were drafted in 1998 through being drafted in 2020. So that would have given you at least 4 years in order to be a quarterback 1 from the 2020 class on. So I wanted to give enough time for them to actually accomplish that feat. So
I must say those numbers right there get me really excited. So 70% chance pretty much to repeat.
70% chance almost.
And there are 2 players on this podcast that we've been talking up and our ADP or our rank set's going to completely offset a lot of other Dynasty analysts' rank sets. And one we kind of talked about recently, you and I, on a show we did about how Brock Purdy is probably one of the most undervalued superflex players out there.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, and I know you're a big Brock Purdy guy.
Love him. Yep.
Finished as quarterback 6 last year.
He did.
Another guy that I'm all in on, and I was making trades everywhere I possibly could for him, is Jordan Love.
Yep.
Both finished as quarterback. Brock Purdy 5, Jordan Love 5,
Yep.
Purdy 6.
36, yeah.
So that 70% number gets me really excited about those two guys.
Telling you, there's a
particularly.
pretty good chance that they could repeat.
And listen, Love's value has skyrocketed. He's not like an easy get, but like Purdy's still an obtainable.
Yes. Until he gets that contract,
player.
he's going to be fairly obtainable.
And that's what we said on our show. I think it was a Nerd Herd show. So if you
think
don't
so.
if you're not a Dynasty Nerds member, haven't joined Nerd Herd, first off, what the hell are you doing with your time? You get on this Dynasty Hot Boy Summer with us. But two is like we talked about, like Purdy, like the value is running out on Purdy because after this year he's going to sign a contract extension, and that's when he's going to like his ADP and his value will skyrocket. Get ahead of that curve. Like get ahead of him. And like these numbers are we're using this data kind of like figure out where we lean and where we don't. So we were already leaning that way, and that kind of helps support the lean, right? So like I'm almost like Michael Jackson. What's that? Which one was that? Smooth Criminal.
Smooth.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of lean
That's
I'm
a
doing
lean.
on Purdy. And it got us out on like Kyron Williams, and it kind of told us like Rashad White's good as dead in the water.
Yep.
comes the Sharks.
Odds are not good. So if you're doing the math at home, once again, 68.89% plus the 31.11% will give you 100% of our data set. So 14 guys were 1-year wonders, while 31 ended up having at least one additional quarterback one season.
Then what happens?
Once you get to 3+ years, there's definitely a little bit of a tier break here. If you've done it 3 or more times, it's exactly 40% of our data set. So exactly 40% of the guys that were a quarterback once ended up being a quarterback one or a top six quarterback, I should say. Keep saying quarterback one, top 6. If we say it wrong, no, we mean top 6. 40% of the time. So not amazing, but still decent odds. Like once you're in there, 4 out of every 10, and you can usually tell the difference of guys that like this guy's a really good shot to continue repeating, or man, this guy was just in a really good offense, but they just lost their top receiver. They just lost, all this stuff, and I don't know if it's going to happen. Or he did it a lot on rushing, and now he's been hurt a lot, or whatever.
And that's what I'm kind of leaning here towards too. Like, does this data show if there's long-term stability with the rushing quarterbacks? You know what I mean? Because that's what I'm looking at, right? Because it's easy for those rushing quarterbacks to finish top 6. Let's say probably 3. And that's funny. Like that number is at 40%, like for 3 or more, because they're like, oh, that's a good number for rushing. But then you start to see this number dissipate a little bit here. And you're like, oh, I bet a lot of it has to do with some of those rushing quarterbacks. And I want to see when we look at the numbers, like how many of those guys were rushing quarterbacks and how many weren't, right? Because obviously when these numbers, like somebody's got to hold those numbers long term. Kind of we talk about the running backs here. Who are those guys? Will it be the rushing quarterbacks or the passing quarterbacks?
The numbers are interesting because the goats of it, pocket passers.
Keep going.
But the tier right after, there's a lot of runners in there, so that's where it gets really interesting.
What are the odds? Give us more seasons.
All right, so
dig deeper.
4+ seasons.
Deeper.
Easy.
4+ seasons. You're down to 22.22%. So only 22% of guys are doing it 4 or more times. 5 or more, you drop down to 15.5%. And 8 or more seasons, which I would kind of consider that GOAT tier then at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Only 8.89% of the time.
Only 4 players have done it.
That's the tip of the spear right there.
That is
26
the tip
years.
and they're names that are going to be
Not shocking.
very familiar to you.
Not shocking at all.
Some pretty
26.
freaking good names.
26 years, 4 quarterbacks have given you 8+ top 6 fantasy quarterbacks. In 26 years, only 7 quarterbacks have done it 5 or more times. In 26 years, only 10 quarterbacks have done it 4 or more times. Whew. Hey, Nerd Herd, this is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament, and this year it's bigger and better than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's right. Double your money to get more entries and more chances to win. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now, and entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up with the promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. The terms do apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.
It's really interesting. So
who are these people?
The tip of the spear, as Matt said, Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Like, you could almost put him in his own tier. Peyton Manning was incredible over the course of his career. So he was drafted in 1998, first round pick. He played 17 total seasons. He was a top 6 guy in 15 of the 17 seasons.
And remember, he missed a year.
He missed a year.
It was 12 in a row. Then he screwed up his neck and had surgery, and then just came back and rolled right into retirement.
Right. And then his last season, he was washed by that point. He was done. And that, obviously, we have to count that. But 88% of his seasons were top 6 quarterback. And even, you want to look a little bit deeper. He also has he has far and away the most top 6. Also has the second most, tied for second most, top 3 seasons with 8. So who's
the best?
The number 1 guy for top 3 seasons was the number 2 guy of top 6 seasons. So Drew Brees.
Love you, Drew.
Played 20 seasons. He had 11 top 6 seasons. So over half of his career, he was a top 6 guy. But when he did it, he was like, I'm not going to do it halfway. I might as well just be a top 3 guy if I'm going to do it. So of those 11 seasons, 9 of those 11, he was top 3.
That's sweet. Dude.
So when he was elite, he was elite of elite.
And he was a guy that started off his career slow.
Yep.
So, I mean,
there's a couple guys like that.
Yeah, this is 20 seasons, 11 were top 3. How many seasons?
The first 3 or 4 seasons were all
goofy. It was the first 3. That's why they drafted Phillip Rivers.
Right.
And then Phillip Rivers' rookie year, which was Phillip's or Drew's fourth year.
Yeah, last year.
Was in San Diego, and in the very last play of the season when he tore his shoulder up.
Right.
I remember I was a huge Drew Brees guy, even back then. If you guys all know, like, Drew Brees was my quarterback for 17 years.
They would have to be a pretty recent listener to not know that.
On our original Dynasty League, I had Drew Brees from the get-go. It was absolutely fantastic.
Then you could argue I said top 8, the top 4 guys had 8 or more seasons. You could argue that, like, there's a tier separator with this guy and then the next one. But the only other player to have double-digit top 6 seasons is a guy that could still have an opportunity to have one more. Now, it'll be tough. He's getting up there in years. But Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Skipping mini camps.
Coming off
Achilles tendon.
Snapping necks, cashing checks, just living his best life. And he was another one that had an odd start to his career. Yep. It's not like he was playing from the jump like some of these other guys. But over the course of his 19 years, he has put up 10 top 6 seasons, and 8 of those 10 were top 3. So another guy that just, when he was on, like, he was on.
Yeah. So I think if you're looking at the GOATs of fantasy football over the last 26 years, like, who are the best quarterbacks? It's very easily here. We have the order for you. It was Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and then Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Those are hands down the 3 best fantasy quarterbacks that we've seen to date. Now, obviously, there's room to grow for some of these guys. We have some guys in the list.
We have some guys that are climbing.
That aren't that old. That are climbing. That are ready potentially enter this tier. But,
I mean, I've got one on my team, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got one as well.
The funny thing is there's going to be a lot of people that have one of these guys on their team, and they're not that excited, especially Rich. But We'll get to him in a second. Tom Brady is kind of in his own tier.
Yep.
And normally when we talk about Tom Brady being in his own tier, it's at the tippy top. Yeah. It's not really in this case. So we did the 8 or more. He was right at that 8 cusp. So didn't quite hit double digits. But then there is nobody between 5 and 8. So he's not quite to 10, but not as low as the 5. So he's kind of in his own little odd tier here.
Floating around.
So, which is crazy. Again, only 4 quarterbacks in 26 years have done it 8 or more times. And for the most part, Tom's only at 8. Everybody else was double digits or more with Rodgers, Breeze, and Peyton Manning. And it's really weird that after 8, like it drops all the way down to 5. There's no 7. There's no 6. Like it's a pretty clear-cut data point.
I'm trying to. When was the first time Tom? 2005. So that was the first time he cracked the top 6.
It took him a while to get in there.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. He was one of these guys that they really brought him along slowly. He was a guy that was a check down type of quarterback for the first
more of a game manager.
For the first few years of his career at least.
Deion Branch.
They didn't have much of a running game with the Patriots. They were using the short passing game basically to supplant the running game before they got like Corey Dillon, and all the, you know what I mean? So
and Jarvis Green Ellis.
Yeah. So I mean it was
the law firm.
Love that name.
Elite.
Love that name. So that
Nothing
I mean
else.
it doesn't surprise me that it took him that long to all the way to 2005.
And it's kind of crazy too when you look at, we're talking about like, you know, Peyton Manning, right? He did it almost every year of his career. Drew Brees did it, you know, over half of his career. Aaron Rodgers have done it over half of his career. Tom Brady played 23 years. He did it a third of his career.
Yep.
He's the 4th most. It took him a third of his career to do it, where everybody else is like 50% or more of their career did it.
Yeah. It just shows like truly like it just made me appreciate Peyton Manning that much more. To be able to 17 seasons and 15 of them top 6 is just an absolute unreal run of consistency to be able to do something.
He's
like
the
that.
like so the more I talk about it, it's like, man, Pat Mahomes might be the best quarterback I ever saw. Drew Brees is my favorite quarterback of all time. And like, oh, can Pat Mahomes catch, you know, forget about Tom Brady and his rings. Like that makes him the GOAT because the Super Bowl. Super Bowl's all that matters. But like, can Pat Mahomes catch him? And when we get to Pat Mahomes on this list, it's somewhat interesting. Like he's got to stay steady for the rest of the way. Like Pat Mahomes literally has to like be a top 6 quarterback for the rest of his career to catch Peyton Manning.
He's had a couple like quarterback 8 years, which have thrown off his numbers a little bit.
Yeah, come on. Hey guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app is the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM. Pretty. You can use the analyzer. You can use the trade calculator. And my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now, we couldn't be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your Sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. You'll have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check our friend Sleeper. Check out the DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate.
But now we get into this tier of five times.
Only 3 guys.
Only 3 guys, and some of the more recent names, and 2 of the 3 are still active quarterbacks. So we have.
I knew Rich was going to say something.
1.5. Let's go.
One of them is currently listed as the starting quarterback for their team,
which is not necessarily for sure.
It's not.
We'll call it 1.5. Half. Half are still playing.
I think quarterbacks, we can go quarter points.
Quarter points, yeah. 1.25.
One still playing competitively.
So
what was the other one? In rec leagues?
Talks a lot.
All right. I think everyone knows your feelings for this player. So Russell Wilson.
Whoa. Start with the top guy first.
Cam Newton. They're all tied at 5. I don't know which one's the top guy. But Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, and then Josh Allen.
He was the guy
All have 5
got multiple shares.
seasons of quarterback one play. So this is a very top tier list. I mean, when we're looking at, we have the GOATs and then the guys that are right underneath. So, I mean, this is a great group to be in.
Did you say Josh Allen in his 6th season has 5?
Dude, he's
5 of his 6 seasons.
And how many top 3s out of that?
Oh my goodness. Josh Allen has 4 top
Wow.
3 seasons in those 5 years.
I mean, you're talking about Pat Mahomes maybe catching. I'm talking about Josh Allen's already.
I was just talking about people, I talked when I saw him like that way. But you're right. Like Josh Allen,
Regular season wise, fantasy football wise, has been incredible.
Yeah.
he's the 1-1. Like he's.
Now
We say him and Mahomes are like a tier. It should be Josh Allen, his own tier, because where he's chasing greatness here, and then Pat Mahomes.
Now let me ask this question, because one of the comps for Josh Allen coming out was Cam Newton, who's in the same list, the same tier as him.
Yep.
Do we worry that if the running slows down, that we could see a similar fate as a Cam Newton?
He's more accurate than Cam Newton.
Agreed. But he gets beat up. And yes, I'm worried.
Yes.
So
That's concerned.
that's the biggest concern there, because
Now
I mean, he's been great.
He's tweaking his throwing motion because he had pain in his shoulder basically all last year. Right? So there are the concerns. This is Cam Newton all over again, right? Cam Newton had the shoulder issue, everything. Like, because he
Was considered an elite quarterback.
He's just getting the
He's a
crap beat out of him he's getting into a car accident every week.
Yeah.
Basically with his body. So yeah, I mean, it's a concern. I all things, I'm thrilled that he's on this list. I know that he's elite when he's on the field.
And I expect him to still be for several years.
So do I. So do I. But I honestly, and I'm saying he's chasing Peyton Manning, all this stuff in the back of my head. I'm thinking there's no way he's going to catch Peyton Manning because he's going to get injured.
Oh,
at
yeah,
some
there's
point.
no way he's catching Peyton Manning.
Yeah, he's going to get injured along the way somewhere. It is going to slow him down, and it is probably going to strip him of the end of his career, which is what you need to get to those Peyton Manning numbers. So,
And when you look at it, Josh Allen, 4 out of the 5 years he was top 6, he was top 3. Cam Newton, top 6 quarterback 5 times. 3 out of those 5, he was top 3.
yeah,
so
it's
like
the rushing.
they're really similar.
I mean, it's the touchdowns. You know what I mean? That and all the rushing totals.
But to be fair, Josh Allen so far in 6 years has already equaled Cam
numbers.
Newton.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so Josh Allen's been incredible. Obviously, a cornerstone of any team you have. He's the 1-1 or at worst the 1-2 in any startup you're going to be in.
And kudos to Russ, for him piggybacking off those good receivers in Marshawn Lynch, and a good offensive line. Good for him. I mean, he's never going to get it again.
No, but I mean, fantasy wise, he was a very good quarterback for
very good
quite a while.
For 5 years.
I like the pick.
He's one of the top 6 or top 7 of the past 26 years.
Did you say piggyback because he's so short? Like he just has to jump on somebody's back?
Yeah. I did it. That's not why, but I like that terminology.
But you're with it. All right.
And to be fair, I haven't really hardcore pooped on Russ except for like the last 2 years.
Oh, okay. I was like, every other episode you find an excuse to talk about why you don't like Russell
I
Wilson.
just loathe the guy.
Yeah.
I hope he stubs his toe every morning before he brushes his teeth.
All right. So then when we're looking at guys that have 4 or more seasons, we also only have 3. So really 4 or more, it's a game-changing list of players.
Yeah, and which again, it just you say the number 4. And this is why I like doing these shows to put it in perspective, like how hard this is to do. Same thing with the running backs. Like you're like, oh, these guys are easy coming. That's just top 12. Like the numbers are so small and consistent. Like you think, oh, multiple years. And when you're trying to build dynasties, right? And people are saying, I'm gonna do this and do that. I'm gonna have this long-term window. The GOAT of these positions, the GOATs. Now outside the quarterbacks, go back to the running backs. We haven't done receivers yet.
And we'll do tight ends too, yep.
The all-time GOATs at the position, their windows are. We said on the running back window, #2 to 3 year window.
Yeah.
And that's like if you have all the players at the same time, like it shows that your dynasty roster should be a constant evolution of cashing out at the right time at these like really high end players. Like following Josh Allen, if something happens to Josh Allen, we're like, oh, hey, Josh Allen after next year, he starts to fall out of the top 6. You're like, okay.
Now's the time.
Yeah, and then
move on.
But so say he finishes quarterback 8. Like this is how you should be looking at these numbers, right? Okay, Josh Allen finishes as quarterback 8. Still really good quarterback, right?
really good.
Still valued really high. Then the following year, he finishes quarterback 7, right? You're like, oh, okay, that's 2 years in a row. I saw the Cam Newton numbers here in this. Let me go back to that Dynasty Nerds Excel sheet that I saved in my files. Like, wow, I should really sell him for Josh Allen for Caleb Williams, like whoever, like plus to kind of like reset my dynasty window there because it's shown here again. The numbers and the facts are here right in front of us. These windows are very limited, and those years are very, very small. Because now we're immediately talking about guys who've only done four seasons, 3 times as well, which is what number are we on? So we're number 7, the 7th guy.
Listen, I'm going to put this caveat on it though, right? Like quarterbacks have a long career.
They do.
Typically, right? So, I mean, if Josh Allen just fades a little bit, maybe his wide receiver core isn't as strong. Stephon Diggs is gone this year, and maybe he doesn't get the production for the next couple of seasons. But it's not injury related, anything like that. I don't think that necessarily makes him a must move. But if he's following the same trajectory, they're always constantly talking about his shoulder's hurting. I tweaked his
something with his knee.
The ankle. They really tackled him from behind, and he's been slowed by that ankle all season. If it's constantly that kind of chatter around Josh Allen, and all of a sudden he's finishing 8, 7, 9, then I think that's justified. That's a good time to move on. I don't think if there's no injuries and he's fine, I don't think you move on from a guy like Josh Allen because I think he has the potential to just hop back up there. Because you'll see it here. I mean, you've seen it across. Tom Brady did the same thing. He would miss a couple seasons in the top 6, and then he'd be back for 3 or 4 seasons.
It is interesting overall because for the most part, most of the guys are in clusters. Of the 4 times they did it in a 6-year period. Or there are a few anomalies though. Tom Brady's one of them where it's spread out pretty far, and there's a couple others that we'll talk about where there's like 4 years in between, 6 years in between their finishes as a top 6 guy, but most of them tended to be in clusters.
Same thing with the running back position we found. It was all for the most, except for a couple
guys. I would think the running backs would be much more clustered.
Super clustered.
I know, but even Garrett's telling you right now, quarterbacks are in clusters. And and Matt, let me say this: like when I mean like, oh, must sell. Like I don't mean like, oh, I gotta get rid of them. It's just being like information. This information gives you a slight edge over your opponent. And in today's dynasty world, with how many podcasts are out there, how many YouTube videos, how many websites on fantasy, like everybody's got information. Like you're looking for like the smallest edge on your opponent. What I'm saying is a must sell is like, okay, you have an opportunity where he's still viewed as elite quarterback. And I'm not saying he's not good at all. That's what I'm saying. That opens your window where it's then in 2 years, he's going to be 30, 31 anyways, to reset that window. Like you're chasing like right now, potentially, like if you saw the Jordan Love and you truly believe in Jordan Love, and I'm not saying, definitely not saying doing this now with a guy like Josh Allen. I'm not saying that, but like if you were able to reset down to
2 years, 2 years from now, yes. If
whoever that may be, maybe it's like, and maybe it's Arch Manning, throw a name out there, but maybe it's Caleb Williams, and maybe you have to throw a little bit on top. But if you can reset, what I'm saying is data might show it might be worth it, right? Like, and if Josh Allen comes out and he's still a top 8 quarterback, and say Caleb comes out and he's 6, 5, whatever, and you could trade Josh Allen plus, say you give Josh Allen in a first for Caleb Williams, which. Again, if you put it on Twitter, some people are like, oh, you just got ripped off. You got taken advantage of. But the data shows you that Caleb Williams is likely to be a top 6 quarterback for at least 4 more times. Then the real data tells you like, wow, you just crushed that trade, right? Because you're getting a top 20 overall fantasy football scorer. That's what I mean. Like just kind of identifying that window to reset. Not like a must sell, like you're not just giving them away, but like if you can find that window to find that next guy, what this data shows us to give you multiple top 6 years instead of settling for 8, 9.
And I'm glad you elaborated. And the whole point of me saying that is I don't want people just to sell.
Yeah,
like
correct.
Like he missed top 6. He was top 7 and then top 8. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't want you to just sell based off of that because there could be other circumstances that kind of made that situation happen.
Yeah, that's why I said 2 years. And you got to use common sense too. But we said the same thing about Kyron Williams. Like, wow, this tells me like Rachaad White, we said sell for whatever you get. But Kyron Williams said, hey, this data tells us he's a must sell. Saying that, just don't give him away. Just see if you can move him for a lateral move. When we say a must sell, it doesn't mean like take pennies on dollars. We'll say take whatever you can get, a sandwich. We've said that for many years.
Absolutely.
So something we say is he's a must sell is like you should be actively trying to sell him for a lateral move.
And there's, in my eyes, I don't know, I'm sure in your guys' eyes as well, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth. There's a huge difference between the two positions as far as me wanting to get a guy off my roster after, a top 6 finish. You know what I mean? Like, a running back, you're almost, get him the hell off my roster right now. Yeah. Whereas in, at the quarterback position, you could be a little bit more patient because there's a much greater, there's a much better percentage that he'll be back there. You know what I mean? Whereas in running back, it's like you just cash out, basically.
Yeah, at running back, after one season, if they're not what you think is an elite guy, and chances are if you thought he was elite, you would have drafted him top 6, top 8 of your rookie draft.
Right.
So if he's not an elite guy, you're probably moving him. Whereas here, after he's a quarterback one time, and you think that there's even a remote chance that he's elite, you're probably holding. But we're also seeing that once you get to about year 3, it gets real tough to keep on past that. So maybe you have a little bit more time, but you also once you get to year 3, I either need to believe that this guy is it, like he's the stud, or if I don't think he's an elite, true, like first ballot Hall of Famer type quarterback, then I probably need to move on because typically we're not getting much more than 3 seasons.
Right.
And the numbers are telling us
3 seasons is 40, and then there's the big drop off to 22% for 5. So that does make sense, or from 3 to 4. Yep. So that does make sense as far as from the numbers, and from 4 to 5, I mean, forget it.
And look at some of these guys
from
really
3 to 5. It's like
it kind of goes back to the running back thing I was saying too. Some of these guys skew those numbers because it's like just those, like it was Peyton Manning and Drew Brees really doing it all the time, and they got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. And then those guys live in those limited windows of Cam Newton, Russ Wilson, Josh Allen's kind of the one that's the high ceiling here. So let's go. Who are the guys that have done it 4 or more times? Yeah,
and if you go into the sheet too, you can kind of see I highlighted. And Matt, I think you picked up on that. Every guy's first season, the first season that they were a 1 or a top 6 guy, I highlighted that, so you can kind of see the spread of when they were and how long it lasted and all of that kind of stuff. But so we are at the guys that did it 4 or more times. Also, just a group of 3. Only 1 active quarterback, though, in this group. He's a pretty good one, though. And starting with the 1999 draft class, we have Dante Culpepper.
Man.
Did it 4 times.
That dude threw a pretty ball, by the way.
Yeah. He had a time there with Carter and Moss. He was on the cover of Madden. Like, dude could do nothing wrong. I mean, he could do nothing other than, he couldn't win a ship.
And 4 he was top 3 quarterback all 4 years.
I think all-time, one of the prettiest Warren Moon, all-time pretty passer.
Yeah.
And Dante Culpepper's got to be up there. I mean, Dan Marino, I was going to say, is probably the guy. But those 3 in my brain are like the guys that threw the prettiest passes.
Yeah, Culpepper's up there. Not McNair, but Warren Moon was up there. I loved Warren Moon. And the Oilers. Oh, I loved him. And Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Marino's probably, we say, Marino in this day and age of football would have won multiple Super Bowls.
Oh, my God. He would have been so good.
He had probably the prettiest ball I've ever seen.
So Dante Culpepper.
Singular.
Then one that breaks my heart. He only played 6 seasons.
Dude.
Was a top 6 guy 4 of those 6.
How good?
Andrew
could he have been?
And he was hurt the 1 year.
He was
4 to 5 years.
I traded for him in my home dynasty league.
I remember.
Like a week or so before he retired.
I remember.
Oh my gosh.
You told me.
So mad. But Andrew Luck, I mean, he was really good. He could run the ball. But he was another one, similar to Josh Allen, where he was just getting the tar beat out of him.
A lot like Daniel. He reminds me of Daniel Jones. Back in the fan club,
from
baby.
the same cloth.
I'm back on the board. Sorry.
Did Andrew Luck ever fall just in the open field running all by himself? I don't know.
I'm sure he did if he's a lot like
If
DJ.
he did, his neck beard kept him up.
Not feet falling.
Man. So, yeah, Andrew Luck, 4 of his 6 seasons, he was a top 6 guy. Only 1 top 3. But if you're doing top 6 each and every year, dude,
that's good stuff.
Do you guys have things that are just imprinted in your brain and you could see him at any time? You could just close your eyes and see him.
Yeah. Oh,
Daniel Jones falling is one of those ones. It's just in my brain. I can see it anytime I want.
Anytime.
Just close my eyes.
Instant replay.
I'm going to erase it on my memory.
I have a bunch of Daniel Jones. I love him. I was secretary, I think, at some point of the Daniel Jones.
I sent him an offer for a 2nd-round pick for Daniel Jones this week. He wrote back, Real offers only, please.
I denied. I didn't even counter. I
Denied.
said real offers only, please.
Sorry.
Rich just wrote LOL.
All right.
It was a super flex, a second round draft pick. And he had the audacity to say it's going to be pretty high. I'm like, get out of here, man.
No, I was like, it's going to be a pretty high second round pick.
Get out of here.
Oh,
Second
man.
round draft pick.
Last one that did it 4 or more times. Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, he's done it 4 of the 7 years. Now, obviously, the 1 year he sat. So it's really 6 years that he's contributed. But
4 to 6.
So really 4 out of 6. And those 2 that he wasn't, he was 8th both those seasons. So it's not like it was a terrible season. He's been pretty durable for the most part. He's been putting up big numbers. He's going to, but you're right. You mentioned it earlier, Rich. He's going to have to basically have a top 6 season from here on out to even come close to what Peyton Manning did.
And it shows you why those 2 guys should be the 1-2 in Superflex leagues. You know, like everybody's on the CJ Stroud train. It shows you why, like, hey, Jalen Hurts was a top 6 quarterback in 2022, but he wasn't in 2023, and he still had those really good weapons there, right? So that kind of I'm sorry, he did do it in 2023. I mean, in spurts, but like, where do you see that longevity go into? It shows that those guys are the top 2 guys that have at least a chance to flirt with those numbers, or you can look at it like, hey, the opposite way, they've hit the limit, like their time is done.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one, you think that they stall out on the list between Pat Mahomes? I think we've already know the answer because we talked about it. It would be Josh Allen. Never mind.
It'd be Josh Allen.
It would probably be
Mahomes keeps
Josh
ascending.
Allen.
And it's just the injury factor, right? I mean, that would be why I would think he kind of drops off.
And the only Russian quarterback on this list outside of Josh Allen pretty much is Cam Newton.
Yeah. Russ was like a tweener.
Yeah, he was. He definitely, there was a time when he, especially early on in his career, he was
running a lot more than he was later in his career.
Looking runner.
So something other, just kind of a fun little data point. Almost every year, with the exception of 3 seasons on here, because the 98 one doesn't count because I wasn't tracking it for that. But almost every year we have at least 1 new guy in the top 6. And usually there's 2 to 3 inside the top 6 every year. So it'll be interesting this year to see, you know, who's that new guy? Who's the new one in the top 6, and can they sustain it? So just a little.
So this past year was Love, huh? And
Love and Brock Purdy.
Yep,
both were in it. We had 4 new ones in 2022.
Hurts, Burrow, Smith, Fields.
Yep. And then 2021 was one of those few years that we did not.
The only year on here.
Only year since
that in 2004,
2010 and 2004.
And Geno Smith and maybe even Justin Fields might be one-hit wonders, depending on how Fields goes here, right? So.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, Dynasty nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you, with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate Dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a Dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your Dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As a Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where Dynasty dreams become a reality.
So let's get into the 3 or more seasons now. And this is where the list starts to kind of change a little bit. And surprisingly, you would think this wouldn't be a high barrier of entry, like only 3 seasons. There should be a lot of like current quarterbacks on this list. Only 2.
Only 2 current quarterbacks of everyone you're about to name. So you heard all the names already we mentioned. There's only a couple active quarterbacks.
Yep.
There's only 2 active quarterbacks in all this list of 3s. This is nuts. Give them the names.
All right. So from 3 on, we have just 3 seasons of a top 6 quarterback. Kurt Warner in 1998 was his first year. I don't know why I'm saying the years drafted. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Aaron Brooks.
Yep.
Mike Vick. Carson Palmer. Phillip Rivers. Matt Ryan. And then we get to our 2 current players. Dak Prescott. And who's that last one, Rich?
It's Deshaun Watson.
There it is.
Yeah.
I'll be talking about him tomorrow.
Deshaun Watson used to be a good quarterback.
He did.
Calm down, Pippi Longstockings.
So yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw how few names were in that 3
But the 2 after ones
category.
are pretty elite.
I was very surprised, and both of these guys are not ranked super highly, but for different reasons. But they're not up in that tippy top tier, even though they've shown the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm definitely I'm talking about one tomorrow, so I don't really want to say much.
I'm guessing it's not Dak Prescott.
You are a good guesser.
Listen, I'll just put my 2 cents in on Deshaun. It was 3 years in a row, and it's 2018, 19, and 20, and he hasn't been good since. I've already kind of said it.
Yeah.
He used to be a good quarterback.
He's had some stuff going on.
He's had a few things going on. And then our final group, the guys that have done it twice. And there's some good names in this list, and then there's some names you're like, oh, he did?
Again, not many active quarterbacks.
Not that many. So we have Donovan McNabb, Jeff Garcia did it 2 times, former Browns quarterback.
And running quarterback.
Yep.
Little guy, but
He ran quite a bit.
Yep.
He's one that could have maybe had more had he played longer in the NFL. His rookie season wasn't until he was like 29 or something like that.
Married a Playboy playmate.
So there you go. Mark Bolger ended up being a quarterback, top 6 guy twice.
Greatest show on turf, man.
Yeah, those Rams teams were sweet.
Crazy.
How many of those yards because of Marshall Falk? It's all
Most of
Torrey
them.
Holt and Marshall Falk. Well,
Yeah.
he had Isaac Bruce too. So
Isaac Bruce.
Isaac was
George.
kind of at the end of his career there, but yeah, Holt and Falk.
good stuff.
Electric.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Hasselbeck did it in So you know what breaks my heart? I'm seeing all these 1999 quarterbacks, and Browns drafted a quarterback in 1999. He's not on the list. So
Yeah. Well, he got hurt.
He married a Playboy playmate also.
Heather Kozar. hubba.
Eli Manning. Eli Manning did it 2 times. Tony Romo twice.
Kind of shocking. You thought I thought Tony Romo would be a little bit higher.
So did I. I mean, I think he's probably a guy that if you look back at his career, he did it top 8 or something like that a bunch of times.
A lot of 8s and 9s.
Yeah.
And the next 2 guys are really kind of shocking too.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford, only twice. And he was one of the ones with a big gap that I was talking about.
Yeah, sure.
I think Carson Palmer was one as well. But
the Megatron years, and then not probably until
then he did it in 2021.
yeah.
So he did it once with Megatron in 2011.
When I won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did it in 2011, and then 10 years later in 2021.
Cooper Kupp throwing
So
a million balls to Cooper Kupp.
Yep. So big gap between his 2 quarterback 1 seasons, but they are there. Ben Roethlisberger, only 2. And they weren't until late in his career.
That's shocking.
That was a big shocker.
I mean, to me, I thought he was going to be up in that 3, maybe even 4 times of a top 6 guy.
100%. Because he was he was an old like Josh Allen goal line kind of guy like Big Ben was keeping. Remember he used to rush early in his career too. He's hard to bring down. Like he was running people over. Big Ben was a good rusher.
Yeah, it was, that one was kind of a surprise to me. So we mentioned one active guy in Matthew Stafford, and then we've got 3 other active players. We've got Kirk Cousins has done it twice. Lamar Jackson has done it twice.
That surprised me.
Yep.
And Jalen Hurts has done it twice the past 2 years.
Past 2 years. And out of those 2 years,
Top 3.
Both of them have been top 3.
Yeah.
Both of them have been pretty
I
good.
mentioned his name earlier. Like, oh, he's only. I'm an idiot. Don't mind me. Hey, that's good. Those are good numbers. Those are good numbers for Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is right. He's on the trajectory to be creeping up this list and being in that 4 or 5 time type of guy.
Yeah, he could be one of those goats. It's kind of crazy for Jalen Hurts if he can keep it going. He's got the weapons around him. Definitely on a guy like Saquon. So it's interesting to follow that along. But again, so when you look at the numbers here, 26 years of data, 26 years. I guess you can't say 26 years because you went back to 20. You had to be drafted.
So
by
22 years of data.
So 22 years of data. And the guys we're looking at here are the only, like the low numbers are like, when you think of Matt Stafford for how long he's played, he's only done it twice. Big Ben only did it twice. Kind of shocking. Like Donovan McNabb, He only did it twice. Which
Yeah,
is
I would have thought that number would have been a
kind
lot
of
higher
shocking.
too.
To think like, hey, who had better top 6 finishes, Deshaun Watson or Matt Stafford? People were like, oh, Stafford. Who had more top 3 finishes, Deshaun Watson or Big Ben? Oh, easily Big Ben, right? And I would probably say that too.
I probably would have as well.
And it's Watson.
Yep.
So he's clearly the better Hall of Fame quarterback there. So, I mean, look, check out this Excel sheet. Look at these numbers yourself. Like I said, Garrett has all the names in here, how many times they did it, what the percentages are. Only one top 6 season, or you want a couple names on here that did it once.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through or you want to read it?
So here's the guys that only did it one time.
One-hit wonders.
One-hit wonders.
So far, there's a couple that we expect to do it again at some point, but we'll see.
We do.
Blake Bortles, you're still holding out for
That's
Blake
what it is.
Bortles.
That was the one.
Which is
How'd
nice.
you know?
You're right. There's multiple guys on here we do expect to enter that tier. But here's guys that are at least on the cusp of entering the next tier if you're interested. So we have Blake Bortles, Alex Smith, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Jordan Love.
You skipped a couple of the old guys, but
Yeah.
Derek Anderson,
Oh,
Jay
yeah.
Cutler, Matt Schaub, and Andy Dalton also
Sorry,
did it.
I had my screen down a little bit. So Derek Anderson, Jay Cutler, Matt Schaub, and Andy Dalton. So after naming those guys, we have literally just named every top 6 fantasy football quarterback finish
From
going back to
98
1998.
through 2020.
Every name we just named. That is unbelievable. Like how small of a list that totally is.
Yeah, it is very surprising. Obviously,
These shows are fun.
you know, we're not expecting Carson Wentz or Jameis Winston to do it again, even though they're both active quarterbacks. Geno seems very, very unlikely to be a top 6 guy again. So even though we have several active guys, the only ones that have a real shot are Kyler Murray, Herbert, Burrow, and Jordan Love. And Jordan Love's another one of those weird ones because he sat so long.
Yeah.
You know, so he falls into the Breeze and Rodgers and some of those guys.
What's encouraging is when you look back, like, you know, at the Rodgers numbers, how he kept going forward here, even Brady early on, is Jordan Love has been in the league for 4 years. His very first year as a starting quarterback. In a year where we had no idea how his receiving core was going to be, we thought it was going to be kind of like doo-doo a little bit.
Yeah, real young.
His very first year as a top 6 finish. So that's why, again, when I said Purdy and Love, like, I'm betting on those guys.
And there are two guys.
Purdy? Well, because he was drafted after 2020.
Yeah, so the two guys that haven't hit the threshold that have had at least 4 years of opportunity to enter this list, and that's kind of where the threshold is, where I feel like it's fair to put him on the list of only doing it one time.
Only doing it once, right.
Brock Purdy, obviously, he's only played 2 years, so we still have to wait 2 more seasons to see where he'll be. But Brock Purdy's only done it once, and then Justin Fields is the only other one on this list that isn't eligible but does have at least 1 year of a top 6 finish.
And what you say about that is, okay, if I trade for Justin Fields, there is a 60% chance that he's a top 6 quarterback again. Right? Those were the numbers say. If he gets the opportunity, there's a chance he's 60% chance he is. And then Brock Purdy, obviously, there's a 60% chance that he is as well.
It's almost 70%
Yeah,
chance.
68.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Almost 70.
There's a 70% chance that Justin Fields is a quarterback 1 again, top 6, and Brock Purdy. That's like, to give you kind of idea when you go out there and trade for people, look at this Excel sheet, use that data. Because, I mean, it changes my opinion on, you know, even like if I want to go by Justin Fields, like, we have to be realistic here. Justin Fields is going to get another chance to be a starting quarterback at some point. Like, he's a free agent after this year. He's going to get another chance, an opportunity.
Definitely. Yep.
So,
Well, there's been 6 guys. There's been 6 guys that their first year happened over the past 2 seasons. So, and of course, mine's in dark mode, so doing it in yellow was a really bad idea on my part. But Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Geno Smith, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. So chances are 4 of those guys will do it again.
And we already think Geno Smith isn't going to.
And 2 of those guys won't. Based on the odds, that's roughly what it would be.
yeah, and then it's easy to pin out Justin Fields and Geno Smith.
Probably Justin Fields and Geno Smith would be the 2 that wouldn't, most likely. But you never know.
Yeah, but then it really tells you, like, hey, you should be all in on Jordan Love and Brock Purdy for their price. Well, not more so, I guess, Jordan Love again because of his price point, but we saw a dip in Justin Herbert. That she said tells you should be all in on Justin Herbert.
Should be in on Justin Herbert easily.
And it kind of goes back to what we said on the Nerd Herd show again. And it's kind of nice when you just talk out loud about your opinion. Mm-hmm. And we say, when I said, hey, I think Brock Purdy is the best value in all of Superflex right now. He was a top 10 overall fantasy football scorer.
Yeah, now you got these
year.
numbers to back it
and
up.
then these numbers come out here and say, like, wow, yeah, he is. Like, so it might not. It should behoove you to go out there and go trade multiple firsts for Brock Purdy, who's only 24 years old, by the way, too.
It makes a ton of sense. I've been gobbling up Purdy basically anywhere I can in all of the leagues that I'm in the past like year and a half. Mm-hmm. So he Kyle Shanahan just makes it easy for quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy is a hand in glove fit.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And I'm you mentioned it briefly, but I'm all in on Justin Herbert right now.
Yep.
Because I also added in here like the round drafted. And yes, there's obviously guys that are not, but a vast majority of them are first round picks that are doing it multiple times. And Justin Herbert's a first round pick. He's only done it once so far. There's a dip in his value because he doesn't have a lot of receiving options right now, and people are worried about how much is Harbaugh going to run the football. The odds are telling us, especially if we know that more than likely Geno Smith won't be and Fields won't be, like some of the more recent ones. Well, chances are that means some of these guys are going to be doing it. I would be shocked if Justin Herbert doesn't have another top 3 season or a top 6 season within the next 3 years. I think it's happening sooner rather than later.
Out of all these guys we mentioned, all of them but 11 were first-round picks. All of them but 11. A couple of them were second, like Drew Brees was a second. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady, obviously the outlier at 6. But when you look at those elite guys up there, they're all first-round picks except for Russ Wilson, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees. And Drew Brees was second. Russell Wilson was a third.
And he was 32nd taken, which by today's standards would have been a first-rounder.
Correct. Yeah. And some of these guys are like the outliers. 6th-round picks are Bulger, Hasselbeck. They had that really small window of success right there. But everybody else is pretty much a first-round pick. Then you have Kirk Cousins. We all know that story. Yeah. And Jalen Hurts, of course. So good show. I enjoyed it. Can't wait to dig into the wide receiver one because I'm learning something from each one of these shows. Like I'm really taking away a lot of information from here. So I'm really enjoying these. It sucks we can't do them every year because we got to do them every 5 years essentially. So
or at least 2 or 3 years.
Every 3 years we do it to reset those numbers because they're a really good show. I said it after we did our first show. I was like, that's one of the best shows we've ever done.
And I love it. I love it when we do shows and then I feel smarter afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
After I get done talking every show, you don't feel smarter?
No, I usually do.
I like being lied to.
I plead the fifth.
So we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking boomer bust players. Who are our boomer bust players? I'll give you a little teaser. A little tease.
Do it.
A little tweak on that hard shirt, in the front. So we'll be back talking that show. If you haven't checked out dynastynerds.com, hey, what are you doing with your summer? Right? You get extra podcasts. You get all the new tools. We have a new tool coming. We don't know when because it's something Garrett's been working on. And boy, is this really going to help you with your rookie drafts.
Let's just say if you enjoy the nerd score, you'll enjoy this.
Yes, you will definitely enjoy this. So there's never been a better time than join Dynasty Nerds, enjoying the Nerd Herd. Literally, I say it all the time, for the price of a cup of coffee, you get the app, which is the best tool on the market. You get the Dynasty GM, which is the best tool on the market. You get access to the film room, which, maybe like you already had your rookie draft, but it gets you ahead for next year, the all-22 film room. You get access to the Nerd Score. You get access to the Discord. Like, there's so much you get for the Nerd, all for the price of a cup of coffee. We invest so much time in Dynasty Fantasy Football. You should always put yourself in the best position to come away with that ship. And I promise you, for the price of a cup of coffee, join the Nerd Herd with our tools, with our data points. And I even mentioned how huge of a data points we're going to have coming this season. Like we bought a huge data package. Like it's going to be insane. You see all these other websites, they have all these data points with all these, what is he like on third down versus split? We're going to have all that coming to the Nerd Herd. We bought it. We signed a long-term deal. So we're going to have it forever.
It's a lockdown.
So we have it. It's in access. We just got to build it and put it in the system. But you're going to have access to all the data points. If you're an analytic guy, you're going to have that on dynastynerds.com.
It's going to be so
all
sweet.
For the price of a cup of coffee. And maybe we'll raise prices because we have so much stuff. I don't know. Get in now.
Lock in now
because we'll keep you at this.
We grandfather people in. We don't ever, once you pay your price, you're grandfathered in. So now's the time to join the Nerd Herd. That cup of coffee was a lot cheaper 2 years ago.
It was.
A lot of people are still, I see those, when you see those charges come through and they're paying like $2.99, you're like, wow, that's a good deal.
This guy's
a lot of people's real cup of coffee has gone up.
Right.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, Lord.
Dude, I spend so much. I get a grande. So at Starbucks every morning, they know me by name. I don't even have to ask for what I want. They have cameras on those order things.
They see
go,
you
Rich, extra brew?
Throw your coffee right at you.
So every morning I get a grande nitro brew, add ice in a venti cup. It's the greatest coffee drink I've ever had in my life.
How much is it though? Like $6?
It's $5.45.
Yep.
It's $5.45. I was doing the math with my wife not
Don't
too
do
long
the
ago.
math on that one, man.
I was like,
Don't do
I
the math.
spend $2,500 a year pretty much. 'Cause I go Monday through Friday. It's like right by my house. I just drive, pull in there, and go to work.
Oh, that breaks.
25. Oh, and I would give up. Whatever. Like if you're like, hey, you have to give up this, or this. It's like that. I'm keeping my measure.
Which one?
That.
Not that.
I'm
Not
keeping the coffee.
You're keeping the coffee.
Whatever that thing is.
Whatever. Like, oh, hey, your electric bill is $2,500. To be fair, we're cutting the cord.
Nice.
I think tomorrow.
Are you really?
Nice.
Yeah, we signed up for YouTube TV.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I was paying $250 a month for DirecTV. I know it's gross. I know I'm gross. I'm gross. It's why I'm poor. But I looked at it. I was
That's
like,
roughly the same price you're paying on coffee.
Yeah.
Which would you have rather had, TV or coffee?
coffee. I got the internet.
All right.
I mean, but without
But
TV, you
I did
can't
the
watch
math.
football.
Well, YouTube TV, like, so we're actually splitting it with my brother-in-law. So we're gonna actually split. So I literally just paid for my coffee.
Yeah, you're paying like $40 a month now.
Yeah. Well, we're adding the Red Zone channel. And,
Well, yeah, you do that,
and
but
HBO.
you cancel. You do it for
just do it
4
in
months, and then you
season.
cancel it.
What? Cancel what?
Oh, the sports package. The sports package is basically just Red Zone, and everything else in it is hot garbage.
Oh, wait, the sports package comes with it?
No.
No, it's an enhance.
It's enhanced.
I know, but the sports package comes with the Red Zone
Yes.
on YouTube TV?
Yes.
I'll have to text my brother-in-law after this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you buy it for 4 months, and then you cancel it, and then next football season you buy it
It's
again
cheaper.
and cancel it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool.
That's the way to do it.
All right.
After 3 years, I've learned the system.
I like that. I got to get this information out now because I'm going to forget.
There we go. All right. Let's wrap it up.
All right, guys. Adios.